The flickering light caught her ragged silhouette as she stepped between the bullies and the paralyzed boy. Her fierce eyes betrayed a familiar determination that made the billionaire freeze in disbelief, but no one imagined what would come next. Where are you watching this emotional story from? Drop your location in the comments below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more heart-touching family stories that will move you to tears. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Westridge Elementary's playground as Maxwell Pierce, CEO of Pierce Industries and worth over $9 billion, stepped out of his custom Bentley. His driver rushed to open the door, but Maxwell was already moving, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the pavement as he checked his platinum watch. He was 15 minutes late to pick up his 6-year-old son, Oliver. A commotion near the school's side entrance caught his attention, children's voices raised in cruel laughter. Maxwell quickened his pace, rounding the corner to a scene that made his blood freeze. Oliver, small for his age with leg braces and crutches, was surrounded by 3 older boys. His son's glasses lay broken on the ground, tears streaming down his face. But what made Maxwell stop in his tracks wasn't his son's predicament. It was the tiny figure standing between Oliver and the bullies. A girl, no older than 9, with tangled brown hair and clothes that hung from her thin frame, was facing down the boys with her arms outstretched protectively. "Leave him alone," she shouted, her voice surprisingly commanding for someone so small. "Pick on someone your own size." The tallest boy sneered. "What are you gonna do about it, trash girl? Everyone knows you live behind the supermarket." The girl didn't back down. "I said leave him alone." Her voice dropped dangerously. "Now!" Something about her stance, her fierce protection of a boy she seemingly had no connection to, made Maxwell's heart stutter. There was something achingly familiar in the tilt of her chin, the determined set of her shoulders. Before Maxwell could intervene, the girl moved with startling quickness. When one boy lunged to push Oliver, she sidestepped, stuck out her foot, and sent the bully sprawling. The other 2 backed away, suddenly uncertain. "My daddy's here," Oliver whispered, spotting Maxwell. The bullies turned, eyes widening, as they recognized one of the most powerful men in the state. They scattered instantly. Maxwell rushed forward, kneeling beside Oliver. "Are you okay, buddy?" Oliver nodded, but Maxwell's attention was already shifting to the girl who was now backing away, wariness replacing her bravery. "Wait," Maxwell called. "Please, I want to thank you." The girl hesitated, her gaze darting around for escape routes. Maxwell was struck by her eyes. Piercing blue, exactly like Oliver's, exactly like his late wife's. "What's your name?" Maxwell asked, his voice barely audible. "Emma," she replied cautiously. "Emma Sullivan." Maxwell felt the world tilt beneath him. Sullivan was his wife Catherine's maiden name. And Catherine had always wanted to name their daughter Emma, but that was impossible. Their daughter had died 3 years ago in the same accident that had left Oliver paralyzed. Hadn't she? Maxwell's hands trembled as he stared at the girl. The resemblance was undeniable, those eyes, that determined chin. Features he saw every day in Oliver, features that had haunted him in photographs of Catherine. "Emma," he repeated, the name catching in his throat. "How old are you?" She shifted uncomfortably. 9. Why? 9, the exact age his daughter would be. "Where are your parents?" Maxwell asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. Emma's face hardened. "Don't have any. I stay with different people sometimes." She glanced at Oliver, who was watching her with curious eyes. "Is he okay?" Maxwell nodded mechanically, his mind racing through possibilities, each more impossible than the last. The accident had been horrific, their car plunging off the bridge during a storm. Catherine had died instantly, Oliver had survived with spinal injuries, and Emma, tiny 3-year-old Emma, had been swept away by the current. Her body never recovered. "I need to go," Emma said, backing away. "The shelter closes at 6. Wait, Maxwell said, making a split-second decision that would change everything. Let me thank you properly for helping Oliver. Would you join us for dinner? Emma's eyes narrowed with suspicion. I don't go with strangers. Smart girl, Maxwell thought. Of course, that's wise. What if we eat right here? He nodded toward the school picnic tables. I'll order something delivered. Oliver tugged at his father's sleeve. Can we get pizza, Dad? Please. Something flickered in Emma's eyes at the mention of pizza. Hunger, certainly, but also a child's simple delight. She hesitated, then nodded once. 30 minutes later, they sat at a picnic table, Emma devouring her third slice, while Maxwell observed her every movement, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, just like Catherine. The way she carefully wiped her mouth after each bite, a gesture he'd forgotten until seeing it mirrored in this child. Emma, Maxwell said carefully, the people you stay with, do they treat you well? Emma shrugged. Some do. Mrs. Winters at the shelter is nice, but I'm not supposed to stay more than 3 nights a week. And the other nights? I manage, she said with a child's pride and an adult's resignation. Maxwell felt something crack inside him. Emma, I know this will sound strange, but I'd like to help you. I need to ask you some questions, important ones. Emma studied him, then looked at Oliver, who smiled shyly at her. You helped me, Oliver said. Nobody ever does that. Emma's expression softened. Those boys were jerks. Maxwell pulled out his phone and opened his photo gallery. With trembling fingers, he found a picture of Catherine holding a toddler, Emma. He turned the screen toward Emma. Does this woman look familiar to you at all? Emma stared at the photo, her pizza halfway to her mouth. For a moment she seemed transfixed. Then she shook her head slowly. No, but... She hesitated. I dream about a lady sometimes. She sings to me. Maxwell's heart nearly stopped. Catherine had always sung the same lullaby to Emma every night. Emma, would you tell me if you remember anything about before the shelter? Emma's eyes clouded. I remember water and screaming, and then different places with different people, that's all. Maxwell looked at his son and the girl who might be his daughter and made another decision. Emma, would you like to come home with us tonight? Just for dinner and a safe place to sleep, I think. I think we have a lot to talk about. Genevieve Pierce sat in her penthouse office atop the Pierce Industries headquarters, scrolling through the surveillance photos her private investigator had sent. Her wrinkled hands, adorned with diamonds worth more than most people's homes, tightened around her tablet as she examined images of Maxwell talking to a disheveled little girl outside the elementary school. What are you up to now, Maxwell? She murmured, her voice sharp despite her 73 years. She zoomed in on the girl's face and felt a jolt of recognition. Those eyes, Catherine Sullivan's eyes, the same eyes that had looked at Genevieve with defiance when Catherine had refused to sign the post-nuptial agreement Genevieve had drafted. The intercom buzzed. Mrs. Pierce, Dr. Whitmore is here to see you. Send him in, she commanded, smoothing her perfectly coiffed silver hair. Dr. Whitmore entered, a thin man with nervous hands and the perpetual look of someone who has compromised too much of their integrity. He had been the Pierce family physician for decades and knew how to keep secrets, especially when those secrets were generously compensated. You wanted to see me, Mrs. Pierce? Genevieve turned the tablet toward him. Do you recognize this child? Dr. Whitmore adjusted his glasses, studying the image. His face paled. Where did you get this? Then it is her, Genevieve said, her voice flat. Emma Pierce, the girl who supposedly died in the accident. Dr. Whitmore swallowed hard. I can't confirm that without proper testing, but the resemblance is striking. You told me she was dead, Genevieve hissed. You identified her body personally. I identified a body, Doctor. Whitmore corrected carefully. A child of approximately the same age recovered downriver 2 days after the accident. The body was significantly damaged. The dental records were inconclusive due to the child's age. You insisted we close the matter quickly. Genevieve's eyes flashed. To spare Maxwell further pain. Yes, Dr. Whitmore agreed, though they both knew that wasn't the whole truth. 3 years ago, Genevieve had seized an opportunity. With Catherine dead and Maxwell devastated by grief, Genevieve had reclaimed control of Pierce Industries temporarily to help her son through his tragedy. That temporary arrangement had stretched as Maxwell focused on Oliver's rehabilitation instead of the company. Now, Pierce Industries was effectively hers again, as it had been before Maxwell took over, and she had no intention of giving it back. If that child is Emma Pierce, Genevieve said coldly, Maxwell will have renewed purpose. He'll want to return to his former life, to the company. What do you want me to do? Dr. Whitmore asked, already dreading the answer. First, we confirm her identity discreetly. If she is indeed Emma, we need to act quickly. Genevieve's fingers tapped against the desk. I've worked too hard to rebuild what Maxwell nearly destroyed with his charitable initiatives and ethical business practices. Dr. Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Pierce, if she is Emma, she's your granddaughter. Genevieve's laugh was brittle. Sentiment is a luxury, Doctor. Catherine filled Maxwell's head with weakness. I won't let her daughter do the same, even from beyond the grave. As Dr. Whitmore left, Genevieve turned to the window overlooking the city she considered her domain. For 3 years she had methodically consolidated power while Maxwell retreated into fatherhood. Pierce Industries' stock had never been higher, their profits never greater. She would not lose it all because a ghost had returned from the dead. Picking up her phone, she dialed her most trusted ally. Thomas, it's Genevieve. We have a situation that requires your immediate attention. Emma stood frozen in the entryway of Maxwell's penthouse, her worn sneakers sinking into plush carpet that probably cost more than everything she'd ever owned. The place was massive, all gleaming surfaces and soaring windows, with views of the entire city spread below like a carpet of stars. Is this a hotel? She whispered to Oliver, who giggled as his father helped him maneuver his crutches across the marble foyer. It's home, Oliver said simply. Do you want to see my room? I have a train that goes all around the ceiling. Emma glanced uncertainly at Maxwell, who nodded encouragingly. Go ahead. Maria will be serving dinner in 30 minutes. As the children disappeared down the hallway, Oliver moving with practiced efficiency on his crutches and Emma following cautiously, Maxwell collapsed onto the nearest chair. His hands were shaking. He needed to call someone, the police, a lawyer, a DNA testing facility. The logical part of his brain urged caution, warned him not to leap to conclusions based on a physical resemblance and coincidental name, but his heart knew. Emma was his daughter. His phone rang, the screen displaying his mother's name. Maxwell silenced it. Genevieve would have to wait. He needed time to think, to plan. If Emma was truly his daughter, how had she survived? Who had taken her from the accident scene? And how had she ended up homeless, bouncing between shelters for what appeared to be years? He pulled up his contacts and called the one person he trusted implicitly. Rebecca, it's Maxwell. I need your help with something extremely sensitive. Can you come to my apartment, now, and bring a DNA test kit if you can access one? Rebecca Chen had been Catherine's best friend and was now Oliver's godmother. As a pediatric surgeon at Mercy Hospital, she might have access to what he needed. Max? What's going on? Rebecca's voice was concerned. I can't explain over the phone, but I think... His voice cracked. I think Emma might be alive. 40 minutes later, Rebecca arrived, medical bag in hand and face etched with worried disbelief. Maxwell briefed her in hushed tones while the children ate dinner in the kitchen under Maria's watchful eye. "Max," Rebecca said gently, "you know how unlikely this is." "The grief—" "Look at her," Maxwell interrupted, nodding toward the kitchen. "Just look at her, Becca." Rebecca fell silent as she studied the little girl, carefully cutting her chicken into precise pieces, exactly as Catherine always had. The way she tilted her head when listening to Oliver's chatter, the unmistakable Pierce blue eyes. "Oh my God," Rebecca whispered. "But how?" "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." Maxwell's jaw tightened. "Someone did this. Someone took my daughter and let me believe she was dead for 3 years. Rebecca placed a restraining hand on his arm. "First, let's confirm. I brought a home DNA kit. Results take a couple of days, but I can rush it through the hospital lab." "Do it," Maxwell said. "And Rebecca, not a word to anyone, not even your husband. If Emma is my daughter, someone very powerful went to great lengths to hide her. Until I know who and why, we need absolute secrecy." Rebecca nodded grimly. "What about your mother?" "Genevieve should know if her granddaughter is alive." Maxwell's expression darkened. "Especially not my mother. Not yet." Rebecca looked surprised but didn't press. She didn't know the full extent of the tension between Maxwell and Genevieve, how his mother had systematically reclaimed control of Pierce Industries during his grief, how she had opposed his marriage to Catherine from the beginning. Later, after a simple cheek swab that Rebecca presented to Emma as a special doctor game, Maxwell tucked both children into beds, Oliver in his room and Emma in the guest room across the hall. "Is she my friend now, Dad?" Oliver asked sleepily. Maxwell smoothed his son's hair. "Yes, buddy, I think she might be even more than that." In the guest room, Emma sat rigidly on the edge of the massive bed, looking small and out of place amid the luxury. "Is this real?" she asked, her voice small. "Not a trick?" Maxwell felt his heart break. "It's real, Emma. You're safe here." "Why are you being nice to me, just because I helped Oliver?" Maxwell knelt before her, careful not to crowd her space. "Because everyone deserves kindness, and because—" He hesitated. "I think you and I might have a very special connection. But we'll talk more tomorrow, okay?" After Emma finally relaxed into sleep, Maxwell stood in the hallway between the 2 bedrooms, listening to the soft breathing of the children, his children, and made a solemn vow. He would discover the truth, and whoever had stolen his daughter from him would pay. Thomas Reed adjusted his tie as he entered the sterile white building that housed New Horizons Youth Services. As Genevieve Pierce's attorney for 25 years, he had handled countless delicate situations, but this one required particular finesse. A receptionist greeted him with a tired smile. "I have an appointment with Director Harmon," he said smoothly, sliding a business card across the desk. Minutes later, he sat across from Eleanor Harmon, a harried-looking woman with premature grey streaking her dark hair. "Mr. Reed, how can New Horizons assist Pierce Industries today? We're always grateful for your company's donations." Thomas smiled thinly. "I'm inquiring about a child in your system, Emma Sullivan." Director Harmon's professional demeanor faltered slightly. "I can't discuss specific children without proper authorization." Thomas slid a document across the desk. "Mrs. Pierce is considering establishing a significant endowment specifically for children like Emma. But first, she needs to understand Emma's situation better as a test case for our potential program." The mention of money, serious money, had the expected effect. Director Harmon scanned the document, which appeared official but actually contained no legal authority whatsoever. "Emma's case is complicated," she began hesitantly. "She entered our system approximately 3 years ago, found wandering near the Jefferson River, suffering from hypothermia and trauma. No identification, no memory except her first name. And the surname Sullivan, Thomas pressed, given administratively. When children come with only partial identification, we assign surnames alphabetically by month. She was processed in September. Thomas made notes, his mind calculating. The timing matched perfectly with the accident. And her placement history. Director Harmon sighed. Challenging. 5 foster homes in 3 years. She's strong-willed, currently between placements and using our emergency shelter services. Medical records. Limited. Initial treatment for exposure and minor injuries. Some developmental delays initially, but she's caught up remarkably well, physically healthy now, though she struggles with nightmares and attachment issues. Thomas nodded, closing his notebook. One last question. Has anyone else inquired about Emma recently? Director Harmon hesitated. Actually, yes. We received a call this morning from Maxwell Pierce's office, requesting Emma's file. Thomas concealed his alarm. I see. When will those records be provided? We explained that without legal guardianship or court order, we couldn't release them. Thomas relaxed slightly. Wise policy. Director Harmon, I'd like to ensure that policy remains firmly in place. Pierce Industries will donate $50,000 to your operating costs immediately, with the understanding that any inquiries about Emma Sullivan come directly to me first. Her eyes widened at the figure. That's very generous, Mrs. Pierce believes in supporting good management, Thomas said smoothly, rising to leave. You'll have the transfer by end of day. As he walked to his car, Thomas called Genevieve. It's confirmed. The timeline matches perfectly. The child was found near the river within days of the accident. And Maxwell knows, Genevieve said, not a question. He's already making inquiries. We need to move quickly. Bring Dr. Whitmore and meet me at the penthouse in an hour, Genevieve ordered. It's time to implement our contingency plan. Meanwhile, across town, Maxwell sat in his home office, facing his own computer screen with growing rage. His top security team had spent the night hacking into sealed records, and what they'd found was damning. Play it again, he instructed. The security footage showed the riverbank 3 days after the accident. Emergency personnel was still searching the area. The timestamp showed 2:17 a.m. A car with tinted windows pulled up. 2 men emerged, one carrying what appeared to be a small child wrapped in blankets. They spoke briefly with a uniformed officer who nodded and took the child. Money clearly changed hands. The security expert pointed to the screen. We've enhanced the license plate and identified the car. It was registered to Pierce Industries, specifically the security division that reports directly to the board. To my mother, Maxwell said quietly. There's more, the security expert continued. The officer was James Kelly. He retired from the force 1 month after this incident and now works as my mother's head of personal security, Maxwell finished, his voice dangerously calm. Find everything on Kelly, bank records, property, everything. And get me every communication between my mother and Dr. Whitmore from the week of the accident. As his team left to follow these orders, Maxwell stared at the frozen image of his daughter being handed over like a package, her identity about to be erased. The betrayal cut deep, not just of him, but of Emma, denied her family and birthright. His phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Preliminary results positive, 99. 8% match. She's Emma. Maxwell closed his eyes, equal parts elated and furious. His daughter was alive, and his own mother had stolen her from him. Emma woke with a start, momentarily confused by the soft bed and sunlight streaming through windows much larger than any shelter had ever provided. Then she remembered the billionaire man, his kind eyes, the paralyzed boy named Oliver who had shared his dessert with her and showed her his amazing train set. She slipped from the bed, noticing that someone had placed clean clothes at the foot, jeans, a purple t-shirt and even new socks still with tags. Her own clothes had been taken for washing, the nice housekeeper had said. Emma approached the new clothes cautiously, as though they might disappear if she touched them. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "Emma, it's Maxwell. May I come in?" "Yes," she called, quickly sitting back on the bed. Maxwell entered, carrying a small tray with toast, eggs, and orange juice. His smile seemed different today, brighter, but also somehow sadder around the edges. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, setting the tray beside her. Emma nodded. "Best sleep ever." She eyed the food hungrily but didn't reach for it. "Go ahead," Maxwell encouraged. "It's for you. Oliver's already eating in the kitchen. He has therapy this morning." Emma took a cautious bite of toast, then began eating more eagerly. Maxwell watched her, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Emma, do you remember yesterday when I showed you that picture of the woman with the little girl?" Emma nodded mid-chew. "I have some more pictures I'd like to show you, and I need to tell you something very important." Maxwell pulled out his tablet. "This might be confusing or even scary, but I promise I'll answer all your questions as best I can." Emma set down her fork, suddenly wary. Adults who started conversations this way usually delivered bad news: another foster home, another school transfer, another set of rules to learn. Maxwell opened his gallery to a photo album labeled Family. He passed the tablet to Emma. On the screen was a smiling woman with long brown hair and startlingly familiar blue eyes, Emma's eyes. She was holding a baby, while a younger Maxwell stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "This is Catherine," Maxwell said softly. "My wife. And that baby she's holding is our daughter, Emma Pierce." Emma stared at the photo, a strange buzzing filling her ears. She swiped to the next image, the same woman pushing a toddler on a swing, the little girl's face alight with laughter. 3 years ago," Maxwell continued carefully, "there was an accident. Our car went off a bridge during a storm. Catherine, my wife, died. Oliver was badly hurt, and everyone thought baby Emma had drowned." Emma's hand trembled as she swiped through more photos, the same little girl blowing out birthday candles, opening Christmas presents, riding on Maxwell's shoulders. "I don't understand," Emma whispered. "Last night," Maxwell said, his voice thick with emotion, "we did a special test, a DNA test that shows if people are related. Emma, the test shows that you are almost certainly my daughter. The daughter I thought died 3 years ago." Emma felt the room tilt. She looked back at the photos, then up at Maxwell's face, searching for the lie, the trick. There had to be a catch. Good things like this didn't happen to her. "But I don't remember you," she said. "I don't remember her. You were only 3 when it happened," Maxwell explained gently, "and trauma can cause memory loss, especially in young children. If I'm your daughter, why was I in the shelter? Why didn't you find me?" The accusation in her voice was unmistakable. Maxwell's face crumpled. "Because someone took you from the accident site and made everyone believe you had died, including me. I would have searched the whole world for you if I'd known, Emma. I swear it." Emma set the tablet down carefully, her young mind struggling to process such an enormous revelation. If this was true, she wasn't Emma Sullivan, homeless nobody. She was Emma Pierce, daughter of a billionaire, sister to Oliver, a girl who belonged somewhere. "Is that why you have the same eyes as me? And Oliver too?" Maxwell nodded, tears now flowing freely. "Yes, you have your mother's eyes. My mother, your grandmother, always said they were like Pierce sapphires." Emma sat very still, processing. "If I'm really your daughter, what happens now?" "Now," Maxwell said, reaching for her hand but stopping short of touching her, respecting her space. "If you want, you come home. For good. You become Emma Pierce again. You get to know your brother. You go to school, have your own room, toys, books, anything you want. But most importantly, you'll be safe and loved." Emma looked down at her hands. "The other places. They always sent me back when I wasn't what they wanted. I will never send you back, Maxwell vowed, his voice breaking. You are my daughter. Nothing you could ever do would change that. Finally, Emma asked the question that mattered most. Who took me away from you? Maxwell's expression darkened. I'm still figuring that out, but I promise you this, whoever did it will never hurt you again. Emma reached out tentatively and touched Maxwell's hand, the first time she had initiated contact. Can I see Oliver now? Maxwell smiled through his tears. Of course. He's your brother. And Emma, he always asked about you. Every night before bed he would say, "Tell me about Emma again." Even when I thought you were gone, Oliver kept your memory alive. Genevieve Pierce tapped her manicured nails against the marble countertop of her penthouse kitchen as she listened to Thomas Reed's report. The DNA test has been confirmed, Thomas said grimly. Maxwell now has incontrovertible evidence that the girl is Emma. Dr. Whitmore paced nervously. This is a disaster if he traces this back to us. He already has, Genevieve said coolly, sliding her tablet across the counter. On the screen was a text message from Maxwell. I know what you did. Expect me at 2 p.m. alone. Thomas paled. He can't prove anything. The records were sealed. The officers paid off. Never underestimate my son when it comes to his children, Genevieve said. He lacks the ruthlessness needed for business, but as a father, he's surprisingly formidable. What's our play? Thomas asked. Denial? Genevieve shook her head. No. Maxwell wouldn't be coming if he didn't have evidence. We pivot to justification. The accident was chaos. The child was found downstream, traumatized but alive. Medical professionals, she nodded to Dr. Whitmore, determined she needed specialized care, away from the spotlight and pressure of being a Pierce. That's absurd, Dr. Whitmore protested. No court would... It doesn't need to convince a court, Genevieve interrupted. It only needs to provide Maxwell a narrative he might accept to avoid a public scandal. He won't want Emma's return tarnished by ugly accusations against his own mother. Thomas nodded slowly. We cast it as a misguided attempt to protect the child, a tragic misunderstanding. Precisely. Genevieve smiled thinly. And if he doesn't accept that explanation, well, there are other measures. At 2 p.m. exactly, the elevator to Genevieve's penthouse opened and Maxwell stepped out. His face was a mask of controlled fury as he crossed the marble foyer to where his mother waited in the living room. Hello, Mother, he said coldly. Maxwell, she replied, gesturing to a chair. Please sit. I prefer to stand. Genevieve sighed. Always so dramatic. I assume this is about the homeless girl. Her name, Maxwell said through clenched teeth, is Emma Pierce, my daughter, your granddaughter, the child you stole from me. Genevieve didn't flinch. I saved her. Maxwell laughed bitterly. Is that what you call it? Having her taken from the accident site, creating false identification, letting her bounce through foster homes and shelters for 3 years while her family thought she was dead? You were in no condition to care for her after Catherine's death, Genevieve said smoothly. You could barely function. Oliver needed specialized care. The company was in freefall. Emma was traumatized, injured. Stop. Maxwell cut her off. I have the security footage from the riverbank. I have Dr. Whitmore's falsified death certificate. I have the offshore payments to Officer Kelly. And as of this morning, I have sworn statements from the first responders who were told to look the other way. For the first time, Genevieve looked unsettled. You don't understand what was at stake. Enlighten me, Maxwell challenged. Tell me what could possibly justify stealing a child from her father. Genevieve rose, her composure returning. Catherine was turning you soft. Those ridiculous charitable initiatives, the ethical business practices that cut into profits. You were destroying everything your father built, everything I helped build. So this was about the company? Maxwell asked incredulously. It was about legacy, Genevieve snapped. When the accident happened, it was an opportunity. With Catherine gone and you focused on Oliver's recovery, I could reclaim control. But I knew once you emerged from your grief, you'd return with all those same misguided values. Unless I remained broken, Maxwell finished, his voice hollow. And nothing would keep me broken, like believing my daughter was dead. Genevieve didn't deny it. Business requires hard choices, Maxwell. Sentiment is a luxury we can't afford. Maxwell stared at his mother, as though seeing her for the first time. You're sick. You need help. What I need, Genevieve said sharply, is for you to think rationally. A public scandal helps no one. Emma's return should be a private family matter. We can craft a narrative together, a miracle reunion, details vague enough to discourage deeper investigation. Maxwell shook his head in disbelief. You think I'm here to negotiate? I'm here to inform you that as of this morning I've filed criminal charges against you, Thomas, Dr. Whitmore, and everyone else involved in Emma's abduction. The police are probably at your door right now. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Genevieve's face drained of color. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. It would destroy the Pierce name. No, Mother. What would destroy our name is allowing criminals to hide behind it. Maxwell turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The board voted this morning. You've been removed from all positions within Pierce Industries, effective immediately. Your access has been revoked, your accounts frozen pending investigation. You can't do this to me, Genevieve said, her voice rising. I made you. Everything you have is because of me. Maxwell looked at her with pity. No, Mother. Everything I have that matters is despite you. Goodbye. As he walked out, passing the police officers entering to arrest his mother, Maxwell felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The hard part was over. Now came the even harder part, helping Emma heal and become part of their family again. Emma sat on the edge of the indoor pool, her feet dangling in the warm water as she watched Oliver during his physical therapy session. A specialized therapist supported him as he moved through the water, his legs working harder than they could on land. You're doing great, Oliver, the therapist encouraged. 3 more laps. Oliver grinned, his determination evident despite his obvious fatigue. Emma had been living in the Pierce penthouse for 5 days now, and each day brought new revelations. She had a bedroom, her own bedroom, decorated in purples and blues. She had clothes that fit perfectly. She had a tutor coming to help her catch up on schoolwork before enrolling at Oliver's school next month. Most startling of all, she had a father and a brother who seemed genuinely happy she existed. Emma still struggled to believe it wasn't temporary. At night, she still carefully stored a small bag of essentials under her bed, an old habit from foster care, always being prepared to leave suddenly. She still hoarded food in her pockets at mealtimes, though Maria, the housekeeper, pretended not to notice. "Emma!" She looked up to see Oliver waving from the pool. "Watch this!" He took a deep breath and ducked underwater, pushing off from the therapist's hands to swim unassisted for several seconds before surfacing with a triumphant splash. Emma clapped, genuinely impressed. "That was awesome." Oliver beamed at her praise. "Dad says I might be able to start swimming team next year if I keep practicing." After therapy, as Maria helped Oliver change, Emma wandered into the living room where Maxwell was working on his laptop. He looked up with a smile that still seemed slightly uncertain, as though he too couldn't quite believe she was really there. "Hi, sweetheart. How was watching Oliver's therapy?" The endearment felt strange but not unwelcome. Emma shrugged. "Good. He's really strong." Maxwell nodded proudly. "He works incredibly hard." Emma hesitated, then asked the question that had been bothering her. "What happened to the grandmother, the one who took me away?" Maxwell's expression tightened briefly before he closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. She's facing legal consequences for her actions. She can't hurt you anymore. Was she bad to you too? When you were little like me? Maxwell seemed surprised by the question. Not in the way you're thinking. My mother was complicated. She wanted things a certain way, and when they weren't, she could be very controlling. Is that why she took me? To control you? Maxwell marveled at her perception. At 9 years old, Emma had an emotional intelligence far beyond her years, no doubt developed as a survival skill during her years in the system. Partly, he acknowledged. She thought without you, I would be different, more focused on business, less on family. Emma processed this. Did it work? No, Maxwell said firmly. If anything, losing you made me focus more on what truly matters, on Oliver, on creating a legacy you both could be proud of. Emma nodded, satisfied with this answer. She moved closer to the couch where Maxwell sat. The police lady who talked to me yesterday asked if I remembered anything else, about the accident or after. Maxwell tried to keep his expression neutral. And do you? Sometimes I dream about water and a lady singing. Emma frowned in concentration. And sometimes I dream about a hospital room with big windows and a woman with white hair looking down at me. Maxwell felt a chill. That would have been his mother, visiting Emma in the private medical facility where she'd been kept before being placed in the system with a false identity. Those might be memories, he said gently, or they might just be dreams. Either way, they're part of your story. Emma seemed to consider this. Then, with the directness of a child, she asked, Do I have to call you Dad right away, or can I call you Maxwell until I get used to everything? Maxwell felt his throat tighten with emotion. You can call me whatever makes you comfortable, Emma. We have all the time in the world. And the other kids at school, will they know? About me being lost and found? Only what you want them to know, Maxwell assured her. We'll work out a story together that feels right to you. Emma nodded, then did something she hadn't done before. She sat down next to Maxwell on the couch, not touching him but close enough to share space comfortably. I think I'd like to try swimming lessons too, she said after a moment, like Oliver. Maxwell smiled. I think that's a wonderful idea. Just then, Oliver rolled into the room in his wheelchair, freshly changed after his therapy. Emma! Dad! Can we watch a movie? Maria made popcorn. As they settled in for the movie, Oliver transferring carefully to the couch, Emma curled up with a bowl of popcorn, Maxwell in the middle, a tentative family unit was forming. Different from before, shaped by loss and separation, but growing stronger by the day. What none of them realized was that across town, in the county jail where Genevieve Pierce awaited bail, a visitor had just arrived. A visitor who would set in motion events that would threaten everything Maxwell was rebuilding. I'm sorry, Mrs. Pierce, but bail has been denied, Thomas Reed informed Genevieve through the scratched plexiglass of the visitation booth. The judge cited flight risk due to your resources. Genevieve's expression remained impassive, though the orange jumpsuit and harsh fluorescent lighting did nothing for her carefully maintained appearance. That's unacceptable. Appeal it. We will, but there's more. Thomas glanced around to ensure no one was listening. The prosecution has a new witness, someone from the private medical facility where Emma was kept initially. Who? Genevieve demanded. A nurse named Margaret Collins. She's claiming you explicitly instructed staff to administer mild sedatives to Emma to prevent memory formation. Genevieve's eyes narrowed. That's absurd. I was protecting a traumatized child. Be that as it may, it significantly strengthens their case. Thomas hesitated. There's also the matter of Pierce Industries. Maxwell has moved quickly. The board unanimously supported his return as CEO. Cowards, Genevieve spat. 3 years of record profits under my leadership, and they abandoned me at the first sign of trouble. Thomas shifted uncomfortably. There's one more thing. Your personal accounts have been frozen, but we've secured access to the offshore funds. I've mobilized our contingency team as discussed. Genevieve leaned forward. Good. Proceed as planned. Maxwell thinks he's won, but he's forgotten what I taught him. Always have leverage. Thomas nodded grimly. It's extreme, Genevieve. Once we start down this path. My son left me no choice, she interrupted coldly. He chose that child over his own mother, over the company's future. He'll learn what that decision costs. Across town, Maxwell sat in a meeting with his security team, reviewing enhanced protocols for the penthouse. We've upgraded to biometric access throughout the building, his head of security explained. The children's rooms have panic buttons disguised as nightlights, and we've doubled the personal protection detail for both Emma and Oliver when they're outside the residence. Maxwell nodded, studying the security schematics. What about school? We're coordinating with Westridge Elementary. They're installing additional cameras and reinforcing access points. We've also vetted all staff who will have contact with the children. Good. Maxwell rubbed his temples, the strain of the past week evident. And my mother's associates? Under surveillance. Thomas Reed made 3 calls from the county jail after visiting Mrs. Pierce this morning. We're tracking the recipients. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Pierce, Ms. Chen is here to see you. Rebecca entered moments later, her expression serious. Max, can we talk privately? After dismissing his security team, Maxwell turned to his friend. What is it? I've been reviewing Emma's medical records from the shelters and foster placements, Rebecca said, opening a folder. There's something concerning. Every medical exam notes unexplained fatigue and difficulty concentrating. 3 different doctors prescribed tests, but they were never completed. Meaning what? I think someone was deliberately interfering with her care, Rebecca said grimly, keeping her medically compromised enough to prevent clear memory formation, but not enough to raise serious alarms. Maxwell's hands clenched into fists. My mother. It gets worse. I had our lab run a comprehensive tox screen when we did the DNA test. There were trace amounts of a benzodiazepine derivative in her system, not enough for significant impairment, but enough to create a persistent mental fog. It's only now leaving her system. She's been drugged, Maxwell's voice was dangerous, for 3 years. It appears so, likely through food or water at regular intervals. Rebecca placed a hand on his arm. Max, with this evidence, the case against your mother becomes much stronger. But it also means Emma will need specialized care, as these drugs leave her system completely. Whatever she needs, Maxwell said immediately. The best doctors, therapists, anything. I've already put together a team, Rebecca assured him, but you should prepare yourself. As the drugs clear her system, her memories might return more clearly, including traumatic ones. That evening, as promised, Emma had her first swimming lesson. Maxwell watched from the poolside as a gentle instructor helped her overcome her initial fear of the water. That's it, Emma, the instructor encouraged as she floated on her back, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and triumph. You're a natural! Later, after both children were asleep, Maxwell sat in his office reviewing security footage from the cameras, now monitoring every approach to the penthouse. His phone buzzed with a text from his head of security. Movement on Reed, met with unknown subject at Marina, surveillance continuing. Maxwell stared at the message, a sense of foreboding washing over him. His mother would not go down without a fight, and she fought dirty. He needed to be prepared for anything. What he wasn't prepared for was Emma's scream that tore through the penthouse at 2:17 a.m. Maxwell raced to her room to find her sitting bolt upright in bed, her face streaked with tears. Emma, sweetheart, it's okay, he said, approaching cautiously. It was just a nightmare. But Emma shook her head violently. Not a nightmare. I remember. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I remember everything. Take your time, Doctor. Lena Harris said gently, her notepad balanced on her knee as she sat across from Emma in the comfortable office that had been set up for their therapy sessions. Maxwell stood by the window, trying to remain unobtrusive. Emma clutched a stuffed rabbit that Oliver had given her, her knuckles white. After the car went in the water, someone pulled me out. Not Dad, Maxwell, someone else, a man in a uniform. A police officer? Dr. Harris prompted. Emma nodded. He wrapped me in a blanket and put me in a different car. I kept asking for my mom and Oliver, but he wouldn't answer. He took me to a place with lots of machines and people in white coats. Maxwell closed his eyes briefly, pained by the image of his terrified 3-year-old daughter, confused and alone. I was there a long time, Emma continued. The lady with white hair came to see me. She told me my mom and brother were dead, and my dad didn't want me anymore because I reminded him of Mom. Maxwell made an involuntary sound of distress. Genevieve had told a traumatized 3-year-old that her family didn't want her. Dr. Harris kept her expression neutral. What happened next, Emma? They kept giving me medicine that made me sleepy. Then one day, different people came and took me to a house with other kids. They told me my name was Emma Sullivan now. When I said that wasn't my name, they said I was confused because of the accident. Emma looked up at Maxwell, her eyes filled with a child's incomprehension of adult cruelty. Why would grandmother do that? Why didn't she want me to be your daughter? Maxwell crossed the room and knelt before Emma, careful not to crowd her. Sometimes adults do terrible things for reasons that make sense, only to them. Your grandmother thought she was protecting something important, the company, our family legacy. But she was wrong about what truly matters. Which is what? Emma asked. You and Oliver, Maxwell said simply. Nothing else comes close. Dr. Harris made a note. Emma, these returning memories might be overwhelming. They might come in pieces, or all at once. When they do, I want you to remember you're safe now. Emma nodded, then asked the question that had clearly been bothering her most. Will I have to see her, grandmother? No, Maxwell said firmly. Never again if you don't want to. Later, as Dr. Harris prepared to leave, she pulled Maxwell aside. Her memories are consistent with the medical evidence and timeline we've established. As the drugs continue to leave her system, expect more memories to surface, not all of them pleasant. Will she be okay? Maxwell asked, the question of a father, not a billionaire. Children are remarkably resilient, Dr. Harris assured him. With consistent support and therapy, Emma has every chance of processing this trauma healthily. But Maxwell, she hesitated. The next few weeks may be challenging. She might test boundaries, act out, even reject affection. It's normal for children who've experienced abandonment. After Dr. Harris left, Maxwell found Oliver and Emma in the game room. Oliver was teaching Emma to play a racing video game, both of them laughing as their digital cars careened around corners. Dad! Oliver called. Emma's beating me, and she's never even played before. Maxwell smiled, heart warming at the easy way Oliver had accepted Emma into his life. Maybe she's just a natural. Or maybe you're letting me win, Emma said shrewdly to Oliver, who pretended outrage at the suggestion. The domestic scene was interrupted by Maxwell's phone ringing. He stepped into the hallway to answer it. Pierce. Sir, we have a situation. It was his head of security. Thomas Reed was observed meeting with James Kelly, your mother's former security chief, at the marina last night. This morning, Kelly withdrew $50,000 in cash and made 3 calls to a burner phone registered to a Carl Winters. And who is Carl Winters? Maxwell asked, already dreading the answer. Former military. Specialized in extraction and retrieval operations. He's suspected of involvement in several high-profile kidnappings for wealthy clients, though nothing was ever proven. Maxwell's blood ran cold. She's trying to take Emma again. It appears so. We've increased security, but Winters is good. Very good. Not good enough, Maxwell said grimly. I want our best people on this. No one gets near my children. As he ended the call, Maxwell turned to find Emma standing in the doorway, her expression revealing she had heard at least part of the conversation. She wants to take me away again, doesn't she? Emma asked, her voice small but steady. Maxwell considered lying, then decided against it. Emma had been lied to enough. Some bad people might try, but they won't succeed, Emma. I promise you that. Because we have security guards now. Yes, Maxwell said, and because I won't let anyone separate us again. Emma seemed to consider this. Then with the simple logic of a child, she said, maybe we should go somewhere else, somewhere she doesn't know about. Maxwell stared at his daughter, struck by the wisdom in her suggestion. His mother knew every Pierce property, every routine, every security protocol. But there was one place she wouldn't expect, the lakeside cabin Catherine had loved, the one property Maxwell had kept in his own name rather than the company's. Emma, he said slowly, that's a brilliant idea. Within hours, plans were set in motion. The penthouse security remained at full alert, making it appear that the family was still in residence. Meanwhile, under cover of darkness, Maxwell, Oliver, and Emma were escorted via a service elevator to a waiting SUV with tinted windows. As they drove through the night toward the remote cabin 3 hours upstate, Emma finally dozed off, her head resting against the window. Oliver was already asleep, his wheelchair secured beside him. Maxwell watched his children, a fierce protectiveness surging through him. His mother had underestimated him once before, believing grief would render him compliant. She wouldn't get a second chance to take what mattered most. What Maxwell didn't know was that at that very moment, Carl Winters was already positioned on a rooftop across from the penthouse, powerful binoculars trained on the supposedly secure apartment, reporting to his client that all seemed quiet, too quiet, inside the Pierce residence. Dawn broke over Pine Lake, casting golden light across the small wooden cabin nestled among tall trees. Maxwell stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the mist rise from the water. This place had been Catherine's sanctuary, a simple 3-bedroom retreat far from the Pierce Industries empire. Inside, Oliver and Emma still slept soundly after the tense midnight journey. Maxwell's phone vibrated in his pocket, a secure line that only his most trusted people knew. "Report," he answered quietly. "Winters took the bait," his security chief confirmed. "Surveillance footage shows him entering the decoy apartment at 3 a.m. Police were waiting. He's in custody but refusing to talk. And my mother? Still in jail. Reed made bail this morning. He's under surveillance." Maxwell ended the call, tension easing slightly from his shoulders. They were safe for now, but he knew better than to underestimate his mother. Genevieve Pierce had contingency plans for her contingency plans. The cabin door creaked open behind him. Emma stood there in borrowed pajamas, her hair tousled from sleep. "Is this your house?" she asked, stepping onto the porch. "It was your mother's favorite place," Maxwell replied. "She loved the lake." Emma absorbed this information solemnly. "Did I come here before? When I was little?" "Many times. You used to feed the ducks from that little dock." Maxwell pointed to the weathered wooden structure extending into the lake. Emma walked to the porch railing, studying the scenery with an intensity that reminded Maxwell painfully of Catherine. "I dreamed about her last night," Emma said suddenly. "Mom." She was singing that song again, the one about the blackbird. Maxwell's breath caught. Blackbird had been Catherine's favorite Beatles song, the lullaby she'd sung to Emma every night. "She had a pretty voice," Emma continued. "Not perfect, but nice, warm." "Yes," Maxwell managed, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. That's exactly right. Emma turned to look at him directly. I think I'd like to call you Dad now, if that's still okay. Maxwell nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Is it okay if I go look at the dock? Of course. Just stay where I can see you. As Emma walked toward the lake, Maxwell watched her small figure navigating the dewy path with careful steps. For the first time in 3 years, he allowed himself to feel something dangerously close to hope. Inside the cabin, his secure phone buzzed again with a text. Breaking news! GP collapsed in jail, being transported to Memorial Hospital under guard. Maxwell stared at the message, conflicting emotions washing over him. Despite everything, Genevieve was still his mother. Was this a genuine medical emergency or another one of her manipulations? The cabin door opened again, and Oliver wheeled himself onto the porch, his face bright with the resilience that continually amazed his father. Morning, Dad. Is that Emma down by the lake? Can I go too? Maxwell helped Oliver navigate the gravel path in his wheelchair, his mind racing with implications. If Genevieve was truly ill, security at the hospital would be lighter than at the jail. It would create opportunities and vulnerabilities. As his children explored the lakefront together, Maxwell made another call. Whatever came next, his priority was clear. Emma and Oliver would remain safe, whatever the cost. Your mother suffered a minor stroke, Dr. Garcia explained, his expression professionally neutral as he spoke to Maxwell through the secure video call. Her condition is stable, but requires monitoring. Is she conscious? Able to communicate? Maxwell asked, pacing the cabin's small kitchen while keeping an eye on Emma and Oliver through the window. They were playing a board game on the porch, their heads bent together in concentration. Yes to both, though her speech is somewhat impaired. She's asking for you. Maxwell's jaw tightened. That's not possible right now. I understand. She also asked for her attorney, which we've had to decline given the circumstances. Has anyone else attempted to contact her? Any visitors? Dr. Garcia consulted his tablet. Several calls from a Thomas Reed were blocked per police instruction. Otherwise, no. After ending the call, Maxwell stepped onto the porch. Who's winning? Emma, Oliver said cheerfully. She's really good at Monopoly. I used to play at the shelter, Emma explained, on rainy days when we couldn't go outside. Maxwell smiled, though his heart ached at these small glimpses into Emma's life during their years apart. How would you two feel about staying here a bit longer? I need to handle some business in the city. Oliver nodded easily, but Emma's eyes sharpened with concern. Is it about grandmother? Is she trying something else? Maxwell hesitated, then decided on honesty. She's in the hospital. She got sick. Are you going to see her? Emma asked. I haven't decided. Emma was quiet for a moment. If you do, will you tell her something from me? Maxwell knelt beside her chair. Of course. Tell her I'm not angry, Emma said, her young face solemn. Mrs. Winters at the shelter always said being angry at bad people only hurts yourself more. Maxwell marveled at the wisdom and compassion his daughter had somehow nurtured through years of hardship. I'll tell her. Later that afternoon, Rebecca arrived to stay with the children while Maxwell returned to the city. As he prepared to leave, Emma approached him with a small, worn book, a diary with a faded cover. I want you to take this, she said. I wrote in it every night at the shelter, about things I remembered and dreams I had. Maybe it will help. Maxwell accepted the diary with reverence. Are you sure? Emma nodded. Mrs. Winters gave it to me. She said writing things down helps you understand them better. The drive back to the city gave Maxwell time to read Emma's diary, page after page of a child's careful handwriting, documenting fragments of memory. A woman singing, water rushing, a stern voice saying, she's better off this way. The entries became more coherent over time, evolving from confused fragments to clear questions. Why don't I have a family? Did they not want me? By the time Maxwell arrived at Memorial Hospital, his resolve had hardened. He nodded to the police officer stationed outside his mother's room and entered to find Genevieve looking smaller and older in the hospital bed, an IV in her arm, and monitors tracking her vital signs. "Maxwell," she said, her voice slightly slurred from the stroke. "You came. Not for reconciliation," he said, taking a seat beside the bed. "For answers." Genevieve's right hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her position. "You always were direct, like your father." "Why, Mother?" "The truth this time." Genevieve was silent for a long moment. "Power," she finally said. "When your father died, I lost everything. You took control, started changing things. Catherine encouraged it, all those ridiculous charitable initiatives eating into profits. Then you had children, and your focus shifted even further. So you saw the accident as an opportunity." "I saw a way to reclaim what should have been mine," Genevieve corrected. "With Catherine gone and you grieving, the board welcomed my leadership. But I knew eventually you'd recover, especially with both children as reminders of her. So you took Emma, made me believe she was dead." Genevieve's eyes, still sharp despite her condition, met his. "One child to distract you was manageable. Two was too many." Maxwell felt cold fury rising. She was 3 years old. "You had her drugged for years." "Mild sedatives only," Genevieve said dismissively, "to prevent attachment to foster families. I always intended to bring her back eventually, once certain arrangements were secured." "What arrangements?" Genevieve smiled thinly. "You'll never know now, will you?" Maxwell stood. "Emma asked me to tell you something. She said she's not angry with you." He moved toward the door. "I wish I could say the same." Carl Winters sat in the stark interrogation room, his posture relaxed, despite the handcuffs securing him to the table. Across from him, Maxwell studied the man who had been hired to abduct Emma. "Mr. Pierce," Winters acknowledged with a slight nod. "This is unusual. Victims don't typically visit their would-be kidnappers." "I'm not here as a victim," Maxwell replied. "I'm here to offer you a deal." Winters raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "Full immunity in exchange for everything you know about my mother's operation. Names, dates, communications, all of it. Immunity isn't yours to give." Maxwell placed a document on the table. "The prosecutor disagrees. Sign this. Tell me everything. Walk away." Winters studied Maxwell with calculating eyes. "Why would you do this? I was hired to take your daughter." "Because I need to end this completely." "My mother is just the tip of the iceberg, isn't she?" Winters didn't respond immediately, weighing his options. Finally, he nodded. "Your mother's plan was comprehensive. If she couldn't have Emma removed from your custody legally, she intended to have the girl taken to an associate's compound in South America, but she wasn't working alone. Thomas Reed. Reed, yes, and others. Board members who preferred your mother's leadership style. Dr. Whitmore, who falsified medical records, and someone inside your current security team." Maxwell kept his expression neutral, though this last revelation sent ice through his veins. "Names. First, I want to see a judge sign off on this immunity deal." 4 hours later, Maxwell sat in his office at Pierce Industries, reviewing the list of conspirators Winters had provided. 3 board members, his head of digital security. Even his executive assistant, all on his mother's payroll, all complicit in a conspiracy that spanned 3 years. His phone rang, Rebecca calling from the cabin. "Everything okay?" he asked immediately. "All fine. The kids are fishing off the dock with the caretaker. I just wanted to update you. Emma's latest blood work shows the benzodiazepines are nearly cleared from her system. Her cognitive tests are improving dramatically." "And the nightmares?" Still happening, but less intense. Dr. Harris says that's normal, part of processing the trauma. Maxwell rubbed his temples. I'll be back tomorrow. I need to clean house here first. By evening, security had escorted 8 employees from the building. Emergency board meetings had been called. Legal teams were preparing statements. The Pierce empire was in upheaval. But for the first time in years, Maxwell felt clear about his purpose. His secure phone buzzed with a message from the hospital. GP, requesting urgent visit, claims critical information about E. Maxwell hesitated, suspecting another manipulation. But if there was even a chance his mother had more information about Emma's time away, he needed to hear it. Genevieve looked worse than she had that morning, her skin ashen against the white hospital linens. "You've been busy," she said as he entered. "Winters talked," Maxwell said simply. Something flickered in Genevieve's eyes. Surprise, perhaps even respect. "Efficient. Your father would approve." "I didn't come for posthumous approval." "You said you have information about Emma." Genevieve's hand trembled as she reached for a cup of water. Maxwell reluctantly helped her drink. "The first year," she said after a moment, "Emma was kept at Greystone Pediatric Facility, private medical records, under the name Emma Sullivan. They documented everything, responses to the medication, memory tests, psychological evaluations. Could be useful for her treatment now." Maxwell studied his mother suspiciously. "Why tell me this?" Genevieve's smile was bitter. "Perhaps even monsters have limits, Maxwell, or perhaps I simply know when I've lost." Later, as Maxwell drove back to his penthouse, he called Rebecca again. "I need you to look into Greystone Pediatric Facility. Mother claims Emma was treated there the first year after the accident. There might be records that could help with her recovery." "I'm on it," Rebecca promised. "And Max?" "And?" "Oliver wanted me to tell you he taught Emma how to bait a hook today. She caught 3 fish." For the first time in days, Maxwell smiled. Whatever his mother's schemes, whatever corporate fallout awaited, his children were healing. Together. Nothing else mattered. The cabin glowed with warm light as Maxwell pulled up the gravel driveway. Through the window he could see Emma and Oliver at the kitchen table with Rebecca, apparently engaged in an intense game of cards. The sight, so normal, so familial, made his throat tighten with emotion. Before he could reach the door, it flew open, and Oliver maneuvered his wheelchair onto the porch. "Dad, you're back!" "Emma beat me at Go Fish 6 times. Maxwell laughed, ruffling his son's hair. "Sounds like we have a card shark on our hands." Emma appeared behind Oliver, her smile still tentative but genuine. "Hi, Dad." The word, so casually offered now, still had the power to stop Maxwell in his tracks. "Hi, sweetheart. I hear you're quite the fisherman, too." Rebecca greeted him with a quick hug, then whispered, "We need to talk later," with a meaningful glance toward the children. After dinner, when Emma and Oliver were engrossed in a movie, Rebecca pulled Maxwell onto the porch. "I found Greystone," she said without preamble. "It's not a legitimate pediatric facility. It's a private research center focused on memory manipulation and cognitive development. Funded primarily by Pierce Industries," Maxwell finished grimly. Rebecca nodded. "Through a series of shell companies. Max, they were experimenting with memory suppression techniques." Emma wasn't just being sedated, she was essentially a test subject. Maxwell gripped the porch railing, his knuckles white. "Does she know? Remember?" "I don't think so. Not specifically. But it might explain why her memories are returning in such vivid flashes rather than gradually. The techniques they used created artificial memory blocks that are now collapsing as the drugs leave her system." Maxwell closed his eyes briefly. "Will there be lasting damage?" Dr. Harris doesn't think so. Children's brains are remarkably adaptable. But we should prepare for more emotional volatility as memories return. As if on cue, a scream tore through the cabin. Maxwell raced inside to find Emma rigid on the couch, her eyes wide and unseeing. "It's a flashback," Rebecca said, kneeling beside her. "Emma, you're safe. You're at the lake with Oliver and your dad." Emma's terrified gaze darted around the room. "The White Room," she whispered. "They kept showing me pictures and saying, 'Forget, forget, forget.'" Maxwell gently took her hand. "That's over now, Emma. No one will ever do that to you again." Slowly, Emma's breathing steadied. Her focus returned to the present. "I remembered something else. A lady who helped me. She snuck me toys and extra food. She said her name was Anna, and she knew my real mom." Maxwell exchanged a surprised look with Rebecca. "Anna Wilson," Rebecca breathed. "Catherine's research assistant at the university. You think she was working at Greystone?" "It's possible," Rebecca said. "After Catherine died, Anna disappeared. I tried reaching her, but never got a response." The next morning, Maxwell made calls from the cabin's porch while watching Emma and Oliver feed ducks by the lake, their laughter carrying across the water. "I need everything on Anna Wilson," he instructed his security team. "Last known address, employment records, current location, everything." By afternoon, they had a lead. Anna Wilson had indeed worked at Greystone for 8 months following the accident. She had then relocated to Seattle, where she now worked at a children's hospital. Maxwell debated his next move. Anna might have crucial information about Emma's treatment, but traveling to Seattle meant taking the children back into public view, where his mother's remaining allies might find them. Emma approached as he ended his call. "I heard you talking about Anna," she said. "I liked her. She used to tell me stories about a little girl named Emma who lived in a big house with her brother and parents who loved her very much. I think she was telling me about me." Maxwell knelt to eye level with his daughter. "Would you like to meet her again? She lives far away, but we could go see her." Emma considered this seriously. "Would Oliver come too?" "Of course. We stay together now." Emma nodded decisively. "Then yes, I want to thank her for being nice to me in the White Room." As Maxwell made arrangements for the trip, his secure phone buzzed with a message from the hospital. "GP, critical condition after second stroke, requesting family presence urgently." Maxwell stared at the message, conflicted. His mother was still under guard, still a threat despite her condition, but if she died without him at least attempting reconciliation, would he regret it someday? More importantly, what lesson would that teach Emma and Oliver about forgiveness and compassion? The hospital corridor seemed longer than Maxwell remembered as he walked toward his mother's room, Emma's small hand clutched tightly in his. Oliver rolled alongside them, his young face solemn. "You don't have to do this," Maxwell reminded Emma gently. "We can turn around any time you want." Emma shook her head. "Mrs. Winters always said forgiveness isn't about the other person deserving it. It's about not letting bad feelings take up space in your heart." Oliver reached for his sister's other hand. "I'll stay right beside you." The police officer outside Genevieve's room nodded respectfully to Maxwell. "She's conscious but weak, sir. Doctor says it could be hours or days." Genevieve Pierce looked diminished in the hospital bed, medical equipment crowding around her like mechanical sentries. Her eyes, however, remained sharp, widening slightly when she saw Emma and Oliver enter behind Maxwell. "You brought them," she said, her voice barely audible. "They wanted to come," Maxwell replied. Not entirely true. He had suggested it, explained that grandmother was very ill, and let them decide. To his surprise, both had agreed. Oliver wheeled himself to the bedside, studying his grandmother with curious intensity. "Hello, grandmother. Dad says you're very sick." Genevieve's gaze moved from Oliver to Emma, who stood slightly behind Maxwell, her expression guarded but not fearful. "Emma," Genevieve whispered, "you've grown so much." Emma stepped forward. Her chin lifted in a gesture that painfully reminded Maxwell of Catherine facing down challenges. "I wanted to see you before we go away. To tell you that I remember the White Room now, and the medicine that made me forget things, but I also remember you reading to me sometimes when you thought I was asleep." Something flickered across Genevieve's face. Surprise, perhaps even shame. "You were never meant to suffer," she said finally. "It was business, nothing personal." "Taking someone's child is always personal, Mother," Maxwell said quietly. Genevieve's gaze shifted to him. "You'll understand someday, Maxwell, when something you've built is threatened, the lengths you'll go to protect it." "I already do understand," Maxwell countered, "but what I'm protecting isn't a company, it's them." He nodded toward the children. A nurse entered to check Genevieve's vitals, frowning slightly at the monitors. "Mrs. Pierce needs rest now." As they prepared to leave, Genevieve beckoned Maxwell closer. "The cabin isn't safe," she whispered. "Reed knows about it. Catherine's parents' old property in Seattle would be better." Maxwell stiffened. "How do you know about our plans?" Genevieve's smile was weak, but still cunning. "I built Pierce Industries' security division, remember? Old habits die hard." Her breathing became labored. "Consider it a peace offering. The information is yours to use or discard." In the corridor, Maxwell pulled the children close. "Change of plans. We're leaving for Seattle tonight, but not from here. Rebecca will meet us at a different location." Hours later, on the Pierce private jet, Emma stared out the window as city lights gave way to darkness below. "Is grandmother going to die?" she asked suddenly. Maxwell, seated across from her, answered honestly, "Probably, yes. The doctors say she's very ill." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "That's sad, even though she did bad things." "It is sad," Maxwell agreed, once again humbled by his daughter's capacity for compassion. "The lady we're going to see, Anna, she told me once that grandmother wasn't always mean. She said she became different after grandfather died." "Is that true?" Maxwell considered this. "My father's death changed her, yes. She became more focused on control, on the company, but the capacity for what she did to you was always there." Emma seemed satisfied with this answer and returned to watching the clouds. Beside her, Oliver had fallen asleep, his head resting against the window. As the plane began its descent into Seattle, Maxwell's phone buzzed with a message from the hospital. "GP passed at 11:42 p.m. peacefully." Maxwell stared at the message, a complex wave of emotions washing over him: grief, relief, anger, and a strange sense of finality. The architect of so much pain was gone. But she had been his mother once, before ambition and control consumed her. "Dad," Emma asked, noticing his expression, "is everything okay?" Maxwell tucked his phone away. "Grandmother has died," he said gently. Emma reached across the aisle and took his hand. "Are you sad?" "Yes," Maxwell admitted, "and many other things too." Emma nodded as if this made perfect sense. "That's how I felt when I had to leave the Brandons. They were nice foster parents, but they couldn't keep me. You can feel sad about someone even if they weren't always good to you." Maxwell squeezed her hand, marveling at the wisdom housed in his daughter's 9-year-old heart. Anna Wilson's apartment overlooked Puget Sound, the morning light casting sparkles across the water. She opened her door cautiously, then froze at the sight of Maxwell Pierce and 2 children waiting in the hallway. "Mr. Pierce," she stammered. "How did you—" "Hello, Anna," Maxwell said calmly. "May we come in? I believe you know my daughter, Emma." Anna's gaze shifted to Emma, her eyes filling with tears. "Emma," she whispered, "you found her." Inside, as Oliver explored the apartment's balcony under Maxwell's watchful eye, Anna and Emma sat at the kitchen table. Emma studied Anna intently. "You used to sneak me chocolate," Emma said suddenly. "And you brought me a stuffed rabbit when I cried at night." Anna nodded, wiping away tears. "You remember." Not everything, Emma admitted, but pieces are coming back. You were nice to me in the White Room. Anna looked at Maxwell. I didn't know what Greystone really was when I started working there. They said it was a research facility for traumatized children. I was trying to continue Catherine's work. She had been studying childhood trauma recovery before. Before the accident, Maxwell finished. When did you realize the truth? Anna's expression darkened. About 2 months in, I caught Dr. Whitmore administering memory suppression drugs to Emma. Experimental compounds, not approved for use in children. When I confronted him, he admitted the facility was funded by Pierce Industries through shell companies. That Emma wasn't just any child, but Catherine and Maxwell Pierce's daughter, officially declared dead. What did you do? Maxwell asked quietly. I wanted to go to the authorities immediately, Anna said, but they made it clear that would be unwise. Pierce Industries' influence was extensive, so I stayed, trying to help Emma as much as I could while gathering evidence. Then you disappeared, Maxwell said. Anna nodded. They began to suspect me. I had no choice but to leave, but I sent anonymous tips to 3 different journalists about Greystone's experiments. None of them pursued it. I'm guessing your mother's influence silenced them. So you've been hiding ever since, Maxwell concluded. Not hiding, rebuilding, working with legitimate trauma researchers. Anna turned to Emma. I never stopped thinking about you. I'm so sorry I couldn't do more. Emma reached across the table and took Anna's hand. You told me stories about my real family. You helped me remember, even when they were trying to make me forget. Later, while Anna showed Emma her collection of books, Maxwell called Rebecca. Anna's confirmed everything. Mother was using Greystone to pioneer memory suppression techniques with Emma as a primary subject. My God, Rebecca breathed. And Anna? She's agreed to testify. With her evidence, we can shut down Greystone permanently and prosecute everyone involved. Maxwell watched Emma laughing at something Anna had said. She also has all of Emma's medical records from that time, copies she smuggled out. They'll be invaluable for Emma's ongoing treatment. And what happens now? Rebecca asked. With your mother gone, is the threat over? Maxwell considered this. Thomas Reed is still out there, and others who were loyal to her, but without her directing things. Yes, I think the worst has passed. That night, at the hotel suite Maxwell had secured, Emma approached him as he worked on his laptop. Anna says Mom was really smart, Emma said, climbing onto the couch beside him. She said Mom was researching ways to help kids who had bad things happen to them. That's right, Maxwell confirmed. Your mother was brilliant. She believed that with the right support, children could recover from almost any trauma. Like me? Emma asked. Maxwell closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. Exactly like you. And she would be so proud of how brave and strong you've been. Emma was quiet for a moment. Can we go see where Mom is buried? Before we go home. Maxwell felt his throat tighten. In 3 years, Oliver had asked to visit Catherine's grave only twice, the anniversaries of her death. It had been too painful for both of them to go more often. But now, with Emma back, perhaps it was time. Yes, he said softly, we can do that tomorrow. We can. Emma leaned against his arm, a gesture of trust that still felt new and precious. Anna said something else. She said Mom would be mad about what Grandmother did, but she wouldn't want us to stay angry forever, because staying angry just keeps the bad things happening inside you. Maxwell put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. Your mother was very wise, and so, it seems, are you. As Emma drifted to sleep against him, Maxwell made a silent promise to Catherine. Their daughter was home, and he would dedicate the rest of his life to ensuring she healed completely from the wounds his mother had inflicted. The cemetery was peaceful in the late afternoon sun, oak trees casting dappled shadows across manicured lawns. Maxwell pushed Oliver's wheelchair along the path, while Emma walked beside them, a bouquet of white lilies clutched in her hands. Catherine's grave was simple but elegant, a marble headstone with her name, dates, and the inscription, "Beloved Wife and Mother." Maxwell had chosen the words himself, grief-stricken and shattered, believing he was burying the mother of 2 children, one living, one lost. Emma stepped forward hesitantly, placing the lilies against the stone. "Hello, Mom," she said softly. "It's me, Emma. I got lost for a while, but Dad and Oliver found me." Maxwell and Oliver hung back slightly, giving Emma a moment of privacy. Oliver reached for his father's hand, squeezing it tightly. "This is the first time all 3 of us have been here together," Oliver whispered. Maxwell nodded, too emotional to speak. The family Catherine had loved so fiercely was finally reunited at her resting place. It felt like closing a circle, painful, yet necessary. Emma knelt by the grave, her small fingers tracing the letters of her mother's name. "I remember your songs now," she said, "and your laugh. Dad says I have your eyes and your smile." After a few minutes, she rejoined Maxwell and Oliver. "I'm ready to go home now," she said simply. The flight back to New York was quiet, all 3 Pierces lost in their own thoughts. Emma slept for much of the journey, her head pillowed on Maxwell's suit jacket. Oliver sketched in his notebook, a talent he'd developed during long hospital stays after the accident. "What are you drawing?" Maxwell asked, glancing over. Oliver tilted the notebook to show a carefully rendered scene, 3 figures on a dock, fishing lines cast into a lake. "Us," he said, "at the cabin. I thought maybe we could go back there sometimes. Not to hide, just because it's nice." "I think that's a wonderful idea," Maxwell agreed. As the plane began its descent into New York, Maxwell's phone buzzed with a message from his security team. "All clear at the penthouse. Reed located in Cayman's under surveillance. Board vote unanimous. All Mother's allies removed." The threat, it seemed, was truly over. With Genevieve gone and her co-conspirators identified and removed, Emma was finally safe. The car ride from the airport was Emma's first real glimpse of New York since her return. She pressed her face to the window, watching skyscrapers and busy streets with wide eyes. "Is our house at the very top of that building?" she asked, pointing to Pierce Tower dominating the skyline. "Yes," Maxwell confirmed, "the top 3 floors. Will I have to stay inside all the time because of bad people?" Maxwell shook his head firmly. "No, Emma, you'll go to school with Oliver, make friends, have playdates and birthday parties, live a normal life." Emma looked skeptical. "Normal like other kids, even though we're rich?" Maxwell smiled. "As normal as possible. Money changes some things, but not the important ones." At the penthouse, Maria had prepared a welcome home dinner, all Emma and Oliver's favorites. As they ate, Maxwell observed his children with a profound sense of gratitude. Oliver was explaining his school to Emma with animated gestures, while Emma listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. Later, as he tucked Emma into bed in her room, now fully decorated in the purples and blues she loved, she asked the question he'd been expecting. "What happens to the bad people? The ones who helped grandmother take me away?" Maxwell sat on the edge of her bed. "They'll face consequences. Some will go to jail. Others will lose their jobs and reputations, but most importantly, they'll never be able to hurt another child the way they hurt you." Emma nodded, satisfied. "And the company? Will you still be the boss?" "Yes, but things will be different now. I'll be home for dinner every night. I'll attend your school events and Oliver's therapy sessions. The company is important, but not as important as you and your brother." Emma studied him seriously. "Grandmother thought the company was more important than people." "She did," Maxwell agreed, "and that was her greatest mistake." As Emma drifted toward sleep, Maxwell lingered in the doorway, watching her peaceful face. Across the hall, Oliver was already asleep, his nightlight casting star patterns on his ceiling. For 3 years, Maxwell had moved through life like a ghost, focused on Oliver's recovery, but emotionally numb, believing half his heart was buried with Catherine and Emma. Now, against all odds, his family was healing. Incomplete without Catherine, but whole in a new way. Tomorrow would bring challenges: Emma's first therapy session in New York, meetings with school administrators, continued legal proceedings against his mother's co-conspirators. But tonight, in the quiet penthouse with his children safely asleep, Maxwell allowed himself to simply be grateful. 6 months later, Emma stood nervously in the entrance hall of West Ridge Elementary, her new backpack feeling heavy on her shoulders. Beside her, Oliver adjusted his glasses and gave her an encouraging smile. "Ready?" he asked. Emma nodded, though her stomach fluttered with butterflies. After months of home tutoring to catch up academically and therapy to process her trauma, today was her first day of regular school. Her first day as Emma Pierce, not Emma Sullivan. Maxwell knelt to straighten the collar of her uniform. "Remember, I'm just a phone call away if you need me. And Ms. Thompson knows to contact me immediately if anything feels overwhelming." "I'll be fine, Dad," Emma said with more confidence than she felt. "Oliver will show me around." "You bet I will," Oliver agreed, maneuvering his wheelchair toward the ramp. He used crutches more often now, thanks to intensive physical therapy, but still relied on the chair for longer distances. As they entered the school building, whispers followed them. Everyone knew the story, or at least the sanitized version that had been released to the media. Billionaire's daughter, found alive after 3 years, had dominated headlines for weeks, though Maxwell had fiercely protected both children from press intrusion. Emma's new teacher, Miss Bradford, welcomed her warmly. "We're so happy to have you join us, Emma. Oliver has told us wonderful things about his big sister." The classroom felt strange at first. So many children, so much noise and activity. But Emma had faced far worse challenges than 4th grade. By lunchtime, she had answered countless curious questions from classmates and even made a tentative friend named Lily who shared her interest in drawing. When the final bell rang, Emma found Oliver waiting in their designated meeting spot. "How was it?" he asked eagerly. "Different," Emma said thoughtfully, "but good different, I think." Maxwell was waiting outside in the car, having left an important board meeting early to personally pick them up on Emma's first day. "Well?" he asked as they climbed in. "I got an A on my math placement test," Emma reported, "and I have a friend named Lily who's coming for a playdate next week, if that's okay." Maxwell smiled, relief evident in his eyes. "That's more than okay. It's wonderful." At home, as Emma worked on her minimal first-day homework at the kitchen counter, she overheard Maxwell on the phone in his office. "Yes, the final paperwork was filed today," he was saying. "Greystone has been permanently shut down. The research has been turned over to legitimate medical facilities with strict ethical oversight." Emma returned to her spelling worksheet, a sense of satisfaction warming her. The white room would never frighten another child. Dinner that night was a celebration of Emma's successful first day. Maria had prepared her favorite pasta, and there was ice cream for dessert. As they ate, Maxwell shared news of his own. "The board approved our new initiative today," he told the children. "Pierce Industries is establishing the Catherine Pierce Foundation for Child Trauma Recovery. It will fund research and treatment programs nationwide." "Would Mom like that?" Oliver asked. "She would love it," Maxwell confirmed. "It continues the work she was passionate about." Emma considered this. "Can I help sometimes, when I'm older?" Maxwell looked surprised, then pleased. "Of course, if that's something you want to do." "I think I do," Emma said slowly. "I want to help kids who had bad things happen, like me. Mrs. Winters always said you should try to turn bad experiences into ways to help others." Later, after the children were in bed, Maxwell sat in his office, reviewing the foundation documents. The Catherine Pierce Foundation would be his wife's legacy, and now, perhaps, Emma's as well someday. The thought filled him with bittersweet pride. His phone rang. Thomas Reed's number displayed on the screen. Maxwell hesitated, then answered. Pierce. Congratulations on your victory, Reed said, his voice tight. Genevieve would have admired your thoroughness, if not your sentimentality. What do you want, Thomas? To offer a warning and information. Did you never wonder how Emma survived the river current that day? How she was found alive when the authorities were searching for a body? Maxwell's grip tightened on the phone. Tell me. Genevieve had people watching the bridge that night, Reed said, following your car. The accident wasn't entirely accidental. Maxwell felt the blood drain from his face. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother's ambition had fewer limits than you realized. Goodbye, Maxwell. Don't try to find me. The line went dead, leaving Maxwell staring at his phone in horror. The implication was clear. Genevieve had not merely taken advantage of the accident, she had caused it. Catherine's death, Oliver's injuries, Emma's abduction, all deliberately orchestrated. If true, it was a level of calculated evil Maxwell could barely comprehend, even from his mother. But was Reed telling the truth, or simply firing a parting shot of psychological warfare? Maxwell set the phone down with trembling hands. Some truths, perhaps, were better left buried with the dead. Higher, Dad! Higher! Emma called. Her laughter carried on the spring breeze as Maxwell pushed her on the swing in Central Park. Nearby, Oliver practiced walking with his new lightweight braces, each step more confident than the last. 1 year had passed since Emma's return. 1 year of therapy, adjustment, nightmares gradually replaced by peaceful sleep, wariness slowly yielding to trust. 1 year of building a new normal for their reconstructed family. Maxwell gave the swing another push, savoring Emma's delight. At 10, she was finally experiencing the carefree childhood that had been stolen from her. Her academic progress was remarkable. She had caught up to her grade level in all subjects and excelled particularly in mathematics and art. Oliver, now 7, had made his own strides. His latest surgery had increased mobility in his legs, and his doctors were cautiously optimistic about his continued improvement. The siblings had formed a bond that sometimes left Maxwell in awe, as though the 3 years of separation had never happened. Time for ice cream, Maxwell called as Emma jumped from the swing with practiced ease. Race you, she challenged Oliver, then immediately slowed her pace to match his measured steps. At the ice cream stand, a woman with a professional camera approached tentatively. Mr. Pierce, I'm sorry to intrude on your family time, but I'm Vanessa Chen from the Chronicle. We're doing a feature on the Catherine Pierce Foundation's 1st anniversary and wondered if you might comment. Maxwell's instinct was to decline. He guarded the children's privacy fiercely, but Emma surprised him by stepping forward. Our mom would be really proud of the foundation, she said with composure beyond her years. It's helping kids who've had bad things happen, just like she wanted to do. The reporter smiled warmly at Emma. That's lovely. Would you mind if I included that quote in our article? Maxwell exchanged a glance with Emma, who nodded. That would be fine, he agreed. But no photographs of the children, please. Later, as they walked home through the park, Emma slipped her hand into Maxwell's. Dad, can I ask you something important? Of course. Is it true that grandmother might have caused the accident? I heard you talking to Rebecca about it last month. Maxwell nearly missed a step. He had been careful never to discuss Reed's parting accusation where the children might overhear. Emma, that's not something... It's okay if you don't know for sure, Emma interrupted. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I decided it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter? Maxwell echoed, astonished. Emma nodded solemnly. If she did it on purpose, that's terrible. But she's gone now, and being angry won't bring Mom back. And if it was just a real accident, then being suspicious doesn't help either. Maxwell marveled at his daughter's wisdom. "When did you get so philosophical?" Emma shrugged. "Dr. Harris says I'm an old soul. I think it's because I had to grow up fast in the foster homes." Oliver, who had been listening quietly, added his perspective. "I don't want to think grandmother could do something that bad on purpose, even though she did other bad things." "Neither do I," Maxwell admitted, "and we may never know the full truth, but what matters now is that we're together, and we're healing." That evening, as the children prepared for bed, Maxwell found Emma sitting on her bedroom floor, sorting through a box of photographs, images of Catherine that he had given her to help rebuild her memories. "This one is my favorite," Emma said, holding up a picture of Catherine holding baby Emma with toddler Oliver leaning against her knee. "We look happy." "We were," Maxwell confirmed, sitting beside her. "Very happy." Emma carefully returned the photos to their box. "Dad, do you think you'll ever get married again? Find us a new mom?" The question caught Maxwell off guard. "I haven't really thought about it," he said honestly. "My focus has been on you and Oliver." "But you get lonely sometimes," Emma observed. "I can tell." Maxwell smiled ruefully at his perceptive daughter. "Sometimes, yes, but I'm not lonely when I'm with you and Oliver." Emma seemed satisfied with this answer. "If you do decide to someday, that would be okay, as long as she's nice and she likes us." "That's very generous of you," Maxwell said, touched by her consideration. "But for now, I'm exactly where I want to be." As he tucked her in, Emma asked one more question. "Will you sing the Blackbird song, like Mom used to?" Maxwell hesitated. Catherine had always been the one who sang to the children. His voice was nowhere near as sweet as hers had been, but Emma was looking up at him expectantly, and he found he couldn't refuse. Softly, a bit uncertainly at first, he began to sing the Beatles' lullaby that Catherine had loved so much. "Blackbird singing in the dead of night, take these broken wings and learn to fly." Emma's eyes drifted closed, a small smile on her face. By the time he finished the song, she was asleep, peaceful and secure in the knowledge that she was home, she was loved, and she was safe. Outside in the hallway, Maxwell found Oliver waiting in his pajamas. "That was good, Dad," he said approvingly, "almost like when Mom did it." Maxwell ruffled his son's hair. "High praise indeed. Ready for your story." As he read to Oliver, Maxwell reflected on the journey of the past year, from devastation to discovery to healing. The road ahead would have its challenges, but for the first time since the accident, the future seemed full of promise, rather than merely something to endure. 6 months later, snow fell gently outside the penthouse windows, transforming New York into a glittering wonderland. Inside, the Pierce family Christmas tree towered in the living room, festooned with lights and ornaments, many handmade by Emma and Oliver over the past weeks. "Is it time yet?" Oliver asked eagerly, hovering near the stack of presents. Maxwell checked his watch. "Almost. Emma's just finishing her video call with Anna." "Now." The past 18 months had transformed their lives in ways Maxwell could never have imagined on that fateful day when he'd found Emma defending Oliver from bullies. Oliver now walked with only minimal assistance from a single cane, the result of groundbreaking surgery and relentless physical therapy. Emma had blossomed academically and socially, her nightmares now rare occurrences rather than nightly terrors. Pierce Industries had changed too. Maxwell had restructured the company with a focus on ethical practices and corporate responsibility, just as he and Catherine had originally envisioned. The Catherine Pierce Foundation was funding trauma recovery programs for children nationwide, with Emma herself occasionally visiting to talk with kids who had experienced similar hardships. Genevieve's legacy had been quietly dismantled. Thomas Reed remained abroad, beyond the reach of American justice, but effectively neutralized as a threat. The question of whether the accident had been deliberate remained unanswered, perhaps forever, but Maxwell had made peace with the uncertainty. Emma bounced into the living room, her face flushed with excitement. "Anna says Merry Christmas. She's coming to visit next month and bringing me books about psychology." Maxwell smiled, unsurprised. Emma had recently announced her intention to become a child psychologist like Dr. Harris, but for kids who get lost, like I did. "Present time," Oliver pleaded. "Present time," Maxwell confirmed. The children tore into their gifts with typical enthusiasm. Books, games, art supplies, and the latest technology. Maxwell watched them with quiet joy, savoring the normalcy of the scene that had once seemed impossible. His own gift from the children was a handmade photo album. On the cover, in Emma's careful handwriting, was written, "The Pierce Family, Lost and Found." Inside were photographs spanning years, some from before the accident, others from the past 18 months, chronicling their journey of healing and reunion. "Do you like it, Dad?" Emma asked anxiously. "We worked on it for months." "It's perfect," Maxwell said, his voice thick with emotion. "The best gift I could imagine." After the presents were opened and breakfast eaten, the family bundled up for their Christmas tradition, visiting Catherine's grave. They placed a wreath of white roses against her headstone, each lost in their own thoughts and memories. "I think Mom would be happy today," Oliver said as snowflakes dusted his woolen cap. "Seeing us all together again." "I know she would," Maxwell agreed, one arm around each child. Later that evening, as they sipped hot chocolate by the fire, Emma made an announcement. "I've been thinking," she said seriously, "about my name." Maxwell and Oliver looked at her with curiosity. "I want to change my middle name," she continued, "to Catherine, Emma Catherine Pierce." Maxwell felt his heart swell with pride and love. "I think that's a beautiful idea." "It's not because I remember her very well," Emma explained, "but because of what she stood for, helping kids heal from bad things. That's what I want to do too." Mom would be so proud of you," Oliver said with absolute certainty. "Of both of you," Maxwell added. As the children drifted off to sleep that night, exhausted from the excitement of Christmas, Maxwell stood at the window watching snow blanket the city. 2 years ago, he had been a broken man, a grieving widower with an injured son and a daughter he believed dead. Now, against all odds, his family had been restored. Different, forever changed by their experiences, but whole again in their own way. The journey had been painful, beyond imagining. The scars would always remain. But as he turned from the window to check on his sleeping children one last time, Maxwell Pierce knew with absolute certainty that they had emerged from darkness into light. Emma was home. Oliver was healing. And together they had created something precious from the ashes of tragedy, a family bonded not only by blood, but by resilience, courage, and unconditional love. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the city in a clean white blanket, nature's symbol of new beginnings. Inside, the Pierce family slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together.